part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. We wanted to just welcome you to the show and say thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure you do this, people. For those who know me, I will threaten you. Go leave us a 5-star review. You know why I'm asking you to do that? So everybody else can find out about it. People who've been watching and checking with us ever since day one, pun intended, they've been doing it. And the reason why I know that, because I've been checking our reviews out. You know, I read those bad boys. I'm out here in these streets. I'm getting down with y'all. So we appreciate you if you have done so, and if you haven't done so, go ahead and get that done for your boy. Now, T, the Braves beat the brakes off the Mets again. Yeah, I said it. And it looks like they're getting a little banged up. So a lot of little B words going on right now. And there was a lot of pettiness. We'll talk about all of that in regards to that. And now there's a number that's being thrown out there. $621 million. We'll tell you exactly what that means for the entire Braves organization. And last but not least, and for the culture, Prime has done it again. I'm telling y'all, man, y'all better get on board. We'll explain. But first, T, like you said, the Braves win 5-0 last night. A combined score in these first two games, 18-1. They got the bats going. They're patient. Ronald Acuna's up here, got walked 4 times for a career high last night. I'm just loving each and everything that I'm seeing from this Braves squad against the Mets.
Yeah, the Braves are out here outscoring the Mets like a man, a woman to man, male, female to male ratio on a black campus. But anyway, just saying.
Oh, God, you can brought up some good memories there, T.
But Braves did need to take care of business most definitely in those first 2 games because, hey, you got Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom to contend with. They're coming for you in games 3 and 4. So you like that the Braves paid attention, understood the assignment, and took care of business in those first 2 games. And like you said, Ronald Acuna Jr. just continues to affirm that he is back when you got these Mets pitchers out here intentionally walking you. And man, oh man, Uncle Charlie, I guess he watches the show too.
Yes, Charlie, he did it. He listened.
He did it. Yes, he did it. But the funny thing is, low key, in his last 11 starts, yes, he's only been 2-2, but that's not all his fault. You talked about it yesterday. At times, he wasn't getting the run support that he needed, but he got just enough of it last night. And in these 11 starts dating back to like June 17th, we're talking about batters also just hitting 183 against him. So that's still a lot to his credit in what we saw in those 6 2/3 innings last night. Season high 12
strikeouts. Oh my goodness.
Yes, amazing. Yeah. But also that 5-0 shutout could not have been done just by Charlie Morton alone. Because remember, when he tapped out at 6 2/3 innings, there were runners in scoring position that could have potentially tied that game. So we also have to recognize what Dylan Lee was able to do.
Mr. Lee.
Exactly. Come in, preserve the lead, and really just make sure that he struck out the batter right there, ended that inning, and then the Braves were good to go from there. But the other thing that we talked about is this. That rest of the bullpen in that Marlins series is paying dividends, and you saw it last night, and you saw it in game 1 as well, and hopefully you'll see it the rest of this series. But Dylan Lee talked about it. Hey, give me a couple days, and in this case 3 days of rest, and that arm is money, and it was money last night. So it was really good to kind of see all of those elements coming together last night, and for the Braves to really flip the script on the Mets, because you know the Mets love to strike folks out, not strike out, but Braves flip the script on them.
No doubt about it. And you got to think about, you know, Brian Snitker has to get credit for that, right? Yeah, we always talk about the Alex Anthopoulos and his forward thinking, and we'll get into that as well. You know, we just talk about what it is to, you know, make certain decisions that people may question and not being afraid to do that. And that's exactly what Brian Snitker did. He gave those guys some rest. He gave those guys, especially specifically in that Marlins series, he knew what was coming up. And I think that a lot of times, you know, managers or coaches talk about not thinking ahead and taking it one day at a time and all that bull crap. But in this particular situation, all of that was out of the door. He was like, I know what we can do against the Marlins. And we're going to try some things out with the Marlins, and we should be able to win because we're just better than them. But for him to kind of have that foresight to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to give my guys a rest. We're going to try some guys out. We're going to throw some guys out there, the Kirby Yateses of the world and all those guys, even Bryce Elder in the starting rotation. All of those guys got their opportunity to show what they can do against a lesser team in order to save these arms for this exact moment. And I think that the Braves are halfway to where they need to be as far as trying to, catch the Mets in the NL East.
Yeah. And don't screw that up, though, because you have an opportunity tonight to win the series. Don't even try to get to the fourth game and try to win the series. Just go ahead and do that now. Because what you don't want to do is, chipping away and getting it down to 3.5 games with that NL East lead for the Mets. You don't want to then give them games back. You don't want to give them anything back if you can help it. And just like Robert Blackman said, and thank you for checking in with us, yes, this is why they are champs. It's the strategy that Jarvis just mentioned with Brian Snicker, and then with each aspect of the team delivering at the plate, delivering on the mound, and delivering on defense. All of those things came together to pull off that shutout. So yeah, Braves looking good. Now just time to continue to keep, as our boy Randy McMichael would say, what's on next?
No doubt about it. And, with the Falcons coming off a win against the Detroit Lions, there was a lot of, conversations that we've had on this show time and time again about the competition on the offensive line. We talked about it, earlier on in the week about that center position. That competition is over. But I think one thing that people haven't really kind of taken a look at or talked about is the fact that there's a lot of competition in this wide receiver room, T. And I'm looking at my paper here, looking at my little roster, and I got my little highlights going on. Brian Edwards, Frank Darby, Stanley Berryhill, Geronimo Allison, Jerry Bernhardt, who caught the game-winning touchdown in the fourth quarter, Alden Tate, Alumide Zaccheaus, Cameron Basson, Demir Bird, Cardero Harge, Drake London. There are a lot of guys on that I just named are really having good camps. And I'm talking about those guys on the back end who are competing for spots. Drake London, not so much. Yeah, more than likely Brian Edwards going to stick around. But there are some guys that have been like Demir Bird and Cardero Hodge. Those guys have been having solid camps. And I think Dave Ragone kind of said it best when he talked about, what it is to be for those guys to be competing. And he said, hey, that group right now, they're really pushing each other.
They are, and they're competing, but I will be honest with you. I still say what I said, which was depth is still a concern to me, because if we're looking at it, not so much just from the wide receiver room, I'm going to actually expand it to the tight end room, because let's talk about just the pass catchers in general. So Indeed, that Kyle Pitts is your one in terms of your one target, right? And then Drake London is likely your second target. Brian Edwards, as long as he stays healthy, is probably your third target, right? So you've got 3 out of your 4 targets, and that's a good deal, especially because you already know that they're probably going to run a lot of 12s, right? A lot of 12 sets. All good. But I'm still concerned. Yes, I know that they've had good training camps, and yes, I know that they, were solid in that first preseason game, but I still do wonder who's going to kind of emerge as that true third wide receiver. One thing you could say about Russell Gage was he could give you something on like a third down. You put him in the slot and he get you that. He moved the chains for you. I just wonder, maybe as an example, who that guy is. And then also a little bit concerning is the fact that in all of those names, you didn't necessarily mention Alumide Zaccheaus first. And so at this point in time, why isn't he considered maybe to be that fourth potential? I don't hear him as that fourth possible target in a lot of conversations. So yeah, as much as I like what Dave Ragone said, just in terms of quantity, I still do have a little bit of a question mark about quality, which hopefully will be answered throughout the remainder of the preseason.
And to be honest with you, I think that was done on purpose, right? Because, Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith have been preaching competition to the fact that I'm tired of using the word because they've used it so much leading up to the season. So I think that was done on purpose. They brought guys in. They said, hey, Alden Tate, you want a shot? Come here, come down to it now and earn you a spot. And I think Alumide Zaccheaus was saying, hey, he looking around like, all right, I was here last year, but this room looks totally different now. And there are a lot of guys that are bigger than me and may or may not have a little bit more capability than I do. So I think that's going to do nothing but breed competition. And I think that I'm interested to see how it plays out as the Falcons get ready to take on the New York Jets on Monday night. And I think that you're going to get a nice sneak peek into what you're going to be in for, or what they're going to be in for, the coaches that is when they go up to start practicing with the Jets. And I think that it's going to be a lot of good things going on, because it's been getting a little touchy feely in these inter squad practices for sure, T. And I'm interested to see how the Falcons fare as they get ready to take on the Jets on Monday. But before we get out of here, T, I gotta bring it up. You rocking your Atlanta Dream hat today, and our girl Ryan Howard just is out here breaking records. The head coach out here getting awards. T, I think the Atlanta Dream made the right decision on who they drafted and who they hired as their head coach. I think that's safe to say, right?
Absolutely. Like the GM of the Aces, who has brought Tenitra right everywhere he's gone. I mean, literally, he didn't do anything wrong this time. That was a good call once again for her. And I tell you, it's so exciting because, again, the Dream are one of the teams, like it or not, the Dream is a team that overachieved. Because when you have the number one spot, and of course they had number 4, but when you have number 4, you're in that top 5 in a draft. That means you were probably not a good team the year before. So for her to bring them to 14 wins and almost double what they did last year, and it's only the second time in the history of the franchise that a first-year coach has been able to get that many wins, she deserves AP acknowledging her as coach of the year. And then, like you said, with Ryan Howard, it's so funny because we all got excited earlier in the day. We're like, oh, Ryan Howard, 4th, month in a row that she is the rookie of the month. And then all of a sudden, hours later, not just rookie of the month by the WNBA standards, but also AP shouting her out for rookie of the year. And I suspect we're going to see the same from the WNBA because she is the leader in points, assists, rebounds as a rookie, and was also just named as one of only 11 players to training camp for the U.S. women's basketball team beginning in a couple weeks. So yeah, they're doing the darn thing down there in College Park. Congrats.
No doubt about it. Congratulations to you, Miss Howard, and to the head coach as well. The Atlanta Dream organization is definitely headed in the right direction. Now, T, we talked about Rome being conquered in a day. Mike Soroka did that last night. We'll talk about that. But before we get there, tell the folks about what's going on over at Dave and how they trying to help the folks out.
Yes. So you guys may have heard, and we don't get political on this show, but just to make an example, you may have heard that there is a bill out there that was signed into law that basically is trying to help us to deal with inflation, right? But real talk, the benefits of that are probably going to come in the next few years, if you will, to individual Americans. But if you need a benefit right now to give you a little lift and to give you a leg up, that is where Dave comes in, because real talk, a lot of us need help real time. So a friend of mine used to always say, speaking of that there's no stress like financial stress. And that's the truth. That's facts. So Dave can help you out in a pinch when you need it and can help you with borrowing a little cash. But the way that it works with him is actually cool because, first of all, the banking app can help you to get $500 instantly with what they call extra cash. And then on top of that, literally, you can download that app to get the helping hand from future you, or for future you rather, and literally go to the store right now. It's DAVE. Extra cash account is what they're going to give you. And guess what? They're also going to give you $500 instantly. And so that's where you're able to get that support real time. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees do apply. Banking is provided by Evolve. It's a member of FDIC. And remember, your future you will definitely thank you. So speaking of the future kind of came to us a little bit last night in the form of Mike Soroka finally being back on the mound after over 2 years. Listen, Jarvis, I don't care whether it was single A, double A, triple A, whatever. Soroka was on the mound dealing again with single A Rome, of course, and they got the win 6-5 over the Greensboro team. We appreciate that. But more importantly, just appreciate seeing Mike Soroka with the opportunity to go 4 innings, to get some strikeouts. Just amazing to see that after the 2-year wait, and hopefully maybe a peek into the future for the Braves.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think that, Soroka is a guy that you kind of feel for, right? A lot of times, covering teams for a long time, you try to be objective as you possibly can be. Yeah. But, when you have a situation where a guy, on consecutive years gets, hampered with an injury, had to go through 3 different surgeries. One was, the initial surgery, and then one other one was just a corrective to kind of see what was going on. And then he ended up having to have surgery to repair it again. And I think that, mentally that can just murder, as a wise man once said, your mentals will be messed up, with Marshawn Lynch. So I think that that's something that you have to take in consideration along with the physical, right? So when you have those 2 things working against you, from a rehab standpoint, it can be daunting. And I think that Soroka, even talked about that. He was just saying just to be on the mound, let alone how he performs, just to be on the mound just felt good, and it's something that, that doesn't normally happen either when you talk about tearing your same Achilles, in back-to-back situations. You're talking about at least, 2 to 3% chance of that even happening. So all of those things are things that I think that Soroka was thinking about when he was on the mound, but good for him, though, just to be able to get out there. Not only get out there, just be out there and leave with no injuries. And he did really well. 35 of his 45 pitches were strikes. So, hey, that's, just from a scout standpoint, I know Alex Anthopoulos got his eyes on him.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's so funny because last night just felt like win after win after win for Braves country. So some people might say that beating and shutting out the Mets was the best thing on Tuesday. Some might say seeing Mike Soroka on the mound was the best thing for Braves country Tuesday. But some might say that the best thing coming out of Braves country on Tuesday was locking up and loading up another one of their young guns in the form of Michael Harris II. Middle of the night, he gets 8 years, $72 million, and it just adds another one to the list of these young guys that we know or hope will be around for quite a while. And literally, you look at the fact that, the Braves, at least locally, they've been known to be cheap, right? But it seems like that's starting to change. Austin Riley got himself a really good deal. Now, I will tell you, and I can tell you a little bit later about what I think about MH2's deal. But first things first, still acknowledge the fact that 72 mil guaranteed is still a good look for starters. And what it really does speak to is the fact that maybe Liberty Media has finally said Double A is the truth. So let's start opening up these purse strings for this guy to get our young prospects taken care of, and also to keep letting veterans know this is a viable place for you to come because you will get paid what you're worth.
No doubt about it. And that's the thing that you have to, look at, right? There is, let's just keep it a buck now. Like, I don't think Liberty Media had a change of heart. Like, I think some of those funds start coming in. That bottom line has changed because the Battery is very successful. They made a lot of money last year because they won a World Series. So of course they're going to be a windfall of money. Say, hey, Double A, man, go ahead and spend that check, man. Buy out those cheap labor years. I know they call arbitration years, but I call it cheap labor years because that's exactly what they are. So, and go and give those guys that money right now. Like, I don't, to have the foresight, to be able to say, go to these young guys and say, hey, man, like, you're not going to be eligible for a contract extension 6 years from now.
Right.
How about we give you this, and you know what? The agent is looking and saying, like, you making what, $700,000 right now? Right. Yeah, man. 3% of $9 million is a lot more than 3% of 700,000. So yeah, let's go ahead and see if we can get this deal done. So yeah, shout out to the Braves for that. Shout out to Liberty Media for, hey, we do trust you, Double A. We do understand what you're doing from a scouting standpoint. That you're drafting guys that were literally coming out of high school 2 years ago, and they're coming up and balling and winning in the conversations for NL Rookie of the Year. You got 2 guys for NL Rookie of the Year. So those, it's just a really good times for in Braves country, because I just love to see it, because you talking about adding some of these young brothers on the team, and like, I know it takes me back to my childhood when I saw guys like Ron Gannon, David Justice on the squad, even Prime when he came around. You just seeing all of these guys. Like, I promise you, 10 to 15 years from now, you're gonna have a lot of young brothers coming up saying, you know what, man, I love Michael Harris when I was watching him growing up. And I just love to see it, because the MLB has always talked about growing the game in a certain way. I think this is where you started. You get these guys that are talented enough to bring up, and then once they're good enough to bring up, you bring them up, and I think the Braves are just doing a great thing right now.
Yeah, and winning is a panacea for everything. So getting that World Series certainly makes it a little bit easier for the Liberty Media team to open up their pocketbooks, right?
They can
But
pry that pocketbook open.
on that same token, you do that for those who are bringing something to the table, like MH2, like Spencer Strider, and of course, coming up the rear, Vaughn Grissom. But there are also times when you have to decide, even with contracts on the table, big or small, that it's time to cut the strings and
Right.
just cut your losses and keep it moving. So noticeably, Marcell Ozuna was not in the lineup at DH for the last couple of games, right?
Yeah.
And it really got me to thinking for just a moment, because we still have to see what they're going to do for the rest of the series, and we also have to see what they're going to do for the rest of the regular season. But it made me think, will we actually see him in these final two games of this series? Will we see him even the rest of the regular season? Heck, even the postseason? Or are we slowly seeing the exit and the curtain call for the Marcell Ozuna era in Atlanta?
You know what? I would not be surprised if that's the case because we talked about how Alex Anthopoulos has to think ahead, right? Given what he's been the salary constraints, and he was able to pay out that money to Marcell Ozuna. He had a really good season in the COVID shortened season.
Mm-hmm.
He was that guy in that year. He was for a short amount of time, but as we've gotten back into the 162,
Yeah, right.
the real you will show. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't want to see him in these last two games.
No.
I don't care to see him. Grossman has been filling in nicely.
Yeah,
And William Wild Bill is more than serviceable at that DH spot. So I don't really care to see Marcell Ozuna. But long term, I think that you talking about 2 years left on the deal, and if you're willing to pay a good portion of that contract for him to go away, and a team pick him up and take a chance on him, I think you make that call. I think Alex Anthopoulos will consider that. So I think that's kind of where it is with Marcell Ozuna. But yeah, Snit, man, don't even worry about give Marcell Ozuna a couple more days off, as my boy John Chucker would say.
Exactly. And you look at some of the quiet moves that the Braves have made in the last 24 hours, in addition to having interchangeable parts like a William Contreras who can play multiple positions, right? And you can even kind of pop Vaughn Grissom in here and there in some different spots. You've got Orlando Arcia, Eddie Rosario. So you've got, and I'm just kind of throwing out those names in terms of players who are interchangeable. And then they go out and they claim Rylan Bannon off waivers from the Dodgers. Now, granted, optioned him to AAA Gwinnett, but that doesn't mean that we won't see him come up sooner rather than later. And granted, that's infield, but again, you're just watching some of the moves that they're making and looking at even a player like Ryan Goins, who they actually did call up to the major league roster. And you're saying to yourself that in different spaces and places, they're starting to kind of tweak this roster to get it ready for this final stretch of the regular season and then get it ready for the postseason. And players like Marcell Ozuna, who aren't serviceable at the plate or in the outfield, they don't have time for that type of dead weight. But speaking of dead weight, if you don't have time for dead weight and you just really want to know the bottom line on what it is that you should bet on, who it is you should bet on, and how you should bet, Jarvis will tell you just how to get it done efficiently with Bet Online.
Folks, go to betonline.net. Why, Jarvis? Because this is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports information. Because guess what? I've been looking at betonline.net because, I may want to put a little change on something. This Falcons-Jets game is coming up. That over-under is 39.5. Joe Flacco's at quarterback for the Jets. Zach Wilson is going to be down for a little while. Hey, the Falcons' offense was looking good with Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder under center. So, shoot. I might want to go ahead and say maybe go get that over or just bet the game straight up. The Falcons are bet favored by 1 point. So hey, that might be something that you might want to jump on. So yeah, if you're not sure and I wasn't convincing enough, BetOnline got all the information you need. Like they have all the sports wagering information, include live betting, esports, and the scores. So you can bet as the game is going along. They have all what you need, right? So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the actions because guess what, y'all? Bet Online is where the game starts.
Yes, sir.
Whew, man, we talking about something that's really good. I talked about my mother Prime got something going on, but for those of you
Right.
who don't know, this is for the culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, and the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about, because that's just how we get down. Prime has done it again, T. He has hired former Minnesota Viking head coach Mike Zimmer as an analyst.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was funny kind of how Dion had announced it.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, shout out to Mike Zimmer, coming on as an analyst. He said, Lord knows I can't really afford to pay you what you're worth, but I appreciate you. And I think Zimmer was right on brand, right? He was just like, he said, quote, the pay's not good, but I do love Dion, and I do anything for him. So so if you're an HBCU and you're trying to figure out how you can maximize your potential that you have on campus and what you want to do as a program and try to grow that bad boy, get somebody that people are willing to work for dang near nothing. I know that's really hard to kind of accomplish, but Prime is doing something special down at Jackson State, T.
Yeah, it's so interesting that we saw this article this morning. And we're like, yeah, let's talk about this. Because just last night I was talking to one of my best friends and he was like, what do you think about what Dion is doing down there? And it was, he had a little tone to it. And I said, let me tell you something.
Oh,
I
yeah.
said,
Yep.
if Dion,
I hear it all the time, too.
yeah, and
Yep.
that's what I wanted to bring up because I know you can appreciate it. If
Mm-hmm.
Deion Sanders stays at J State for 5 years, trust and believe Jackson State, the SWAC, and HBCU football overall is going to be better for those 5 years. When you look at their facilities pre-Dion and post-Dion, I bet they'll be different. When you look at giving, because I'm all about that, give back to your schools, public service announcement. But
Mm-hmm.
when you look at the donors, the number of donors, the percentage of donors, the sponsorships, all of it matters. The NIL deals that can trickle down to some of those students, some of those other student athletes, all of that is the Deion Sanders effect. And I suspect we'll see that soon enough with Eddie George as well. So definitely don't want to take anything away from him and what he's doing at Tennessee State, or even in basketball with Reggie Theus, I think down at Bethune-Cookman. But ultimately speaking, if these guys are willing to take these schools on and help to elevate them, I'm all for it. And yes, when you can bring in a Mike Zimmer or a Jeff Fisher, who's going to say no to that as a consultant?
Right.
Even having somebody like Grambling head coach Hugh Jackson.
Yep.
Who's
Mm-hmm.
going to say no to that if that's going to raise the level of competition within Black college football and also give these guys the kind of facilities that they deserve so that they can show these professional leagues that they are just as good, if not better, than some of the guys who may be at some of those larger D1 programs, right? So I'm all for it, Dion. Congratulations on getting Mike Zimmer to go to J State, and I can't wait to cover you guys this fall. I'm excited about what you guys are doing there. And yeah, again, if he walks away after year 4 or 5 when his kids are done in that program, I believe Jackson State will still be better for it.
No doubt about it. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the buy-in,
Yes.
and with his name, that comes along with the package, right? You got to be able to say, you know what? We know what you bring to the table from a football knowledge standpoint, but we also know from a branding standpoint what you bring to the table. And I think the combination of those two things is one of the reasons why Jackson State has elevated to where it is today.
Indeed.
But T, doggone Prime we talked about his birthday, right? He said Prime recently celebrated a birthday. We'll talk about the most unique gift that I've ever seen for a birthday gift. But first, but tell the folks about what they got going on at Coffee AM, and it's right in our backyard too, right?
It certainly is. So listen, we're about to be in overload for football, and more football, right? So what's going to keep you up in the morning when you've been up all night the night before watching all of those football games, and in some cases like Jarvis and I replaying them and breaking down plays?
Right.
Coffee AM. That's how you keep going. And like he said, best small batch roaster in the country that's right in your backyard, so you can support local businesses and small owned businesses. It's a beautiful thing. But also, we're not just telling you to support a business for the sake of it because it's in your backyard and because it's a small business. It's also good product. So whether you're talking about the
Yes.
coffee, and Jarvis being the coffee drinker on our show, he can tell you it's a great thing when you think about the fact that they are literally taking your order, and that same day or not long after it is when they are actually brewing that coffee. So it's beautiful, current crop, specialty grade. They go all over the world, fair trade, direct trade, organic, whatever it is that works for you, they probably have it. And again, you can go to their website to check it out yourself. Don't just believe us. It is coffeeam.com. And if you go with /locked on, there's a special deal in it for you. You can go to see their full menu so that maybe in addition to coffee, maybe you want to get tea. Like me, I like the tea. Maybe you want to get gift sets as well. And on that first order, again, coffeeam.com /locked on will get you 15% off. So go ahead, of course, stay with us until the end of the show. And then immediately following, check out coffeeam.com /locked on.
No doubt about it. So we, had talked about Prime, hiring Mike Zimmer and doing a really good thing. But I think this probably got to be the most unique thing I've ever seen, T.
Yeah.
Prime got some toes for his birthday. Now, we know that, let me explain.
I already know. I just okay. Yeah.
For those who are watching, let me explain. Prime has, it has had turf toe issues, when he played. And then we know he had be in a wheelchair, bound to a wheelchair because he just couldn't get his toes right. He just could not get his toes right. So somebody decided to say, you know what? I'm going to give you some toes for your birthday. And then they were like the little fake plastic. And they were kind of like European toes.
Right.
So they weren't even brown toes. They were European toes. So European toes on his, he had it on his foot. It was just, I was just like, man, it was just absolutely amazing. But whoever gave him that gift, I think they have a very good sense of humor.
Oh my God. And they better be happy Deion Sanders has a good sense of humor.
Right.
He was like, y'all got jokes.
Right.
So, he took it in stride. He took it in stride because, of course, we know he'd had some challenges really all last season. You saw him kind of hobbling around on the little, rolling walker, if you will. And of course, he had to get a couple toes amputated, but all good with him. He's still Deion, walking around just as sure as you please. But I thought that was really cool. And only your good people, only your boys, only your girlfriends who are like your aces could do something like that and not get hands laid on them. So, but listen, speaking of hands being laid on somebody, we hope that Jake Odorizzi and company lay some hands on the Mets tonight. We know it's going to be a taller order with Max Scherzer on the mound, but we still in Braves country believe that they're coming back with a dub, and we'd love to come back and talk to you guys about it. Also, like Jarvis said, Falcons and Jets are going to get at it with joint practices coming soon. So we'll tell you guys about some versatility we are seeing on the practice field that might translate to the game next week. And of course, you know us. We love to talk about the petty that we know will come as a result of whatever the Hawks schedule looks like when we get it. We already know some of it for preseason. They'll be in Abu Dhabi facing the Bucks on the 6th and the 8th of October. Looks like they're going to take on the Cavs and Pelicans maybe as well. But can't wait to download on that schedule tomorrow. So again, check us out as always first, and then your second stop, Hitting Hard with John Checkery. We will see you guys tomorrow.
Y'all come back now. You hear? Same time, same place, 12:45.